Hi, I'm Leonor, and today I'm going to tell you the story of a Roman city where everything seemed like just another ordinary day. The problem was that this ordinary day is unfolding right beside a volcano that had very different plans.
Long before it became a famous city, Pompeii was just a small settlement near the fertile lands of Campania in southern Italy. The soil was rich, the climate pleasant, and trade was doing quite well. Not a bad place to live at all, if you ignore the minor detail that the whole town sat right at the foot of a volcano. Over time, different peoples settled in the region, including the Samnites, who developed the town before Rome arrived. Pompeii gradually grew through a mix of cultures and a healthy dose of urban ambition. In 80 BC, Pompeii officially became a Roman colony. With that came paved streets, public buildings, temples, and the full package of urban style that Rome loved exporting across its empire. The city prospered quickly. Busy markets, elegant bathhouses, theaters, taverns, and homes decorated with colorful frescoes were part of daily life. Pompeii wasn't just practical or well organized. It was clearly a city that enjoyed living comfortably and showing it. Pompeii's streets were full of merchants, craftsmen, and visitors arriving from many corners of the empire. Between business, politics, and leisure, city life moved with constant energy. For residents, Pompeii was simply another prosperous place within the Roman world. And like any respectable Roman city, it had amphitheaters, temples dedicated to the gods, and public spaces for debate and gathering. Romans, after all, took two things very seriously: politics and entertainment. The wealthiest houses displayed intricate mosaics, inner gardens, and walls painted with mythological scenes. It was a comfortable lifestyle for those who could afford it, and Roman prosperity had a habit of making itself very visible. Everything seemed relatively stable until the year AD 62, when a powerful earthquake struck the region. Many buildings were damaged, and the city spent years rebuilding. A fairly clear geological warning, which almost nobody really treated as one. While builders repaired homes and temples, life continued almost as usual. Markets reopened, festivals returned, and business moved forward. For most people, the earthquake had been more of an inconvenience than a warning sign. Rising beside the city stood Mount Vesuvius, a mountain that looked calm and silent. For the people of Pompeii, it was simply part of the landscape. Volcanoes, after all, are not particularly known for sending polite invitations before they decide to wake up. For years, small tremors continued from time to time. Objects fell from shelves, cracks appeared in walls, and some residents began to notice the shaking. Even so, life carried on normally. Repairing walls was, after all, much easier than relocating an entire city. In the summer of AD 79, Pompeii was as busy as ever. Merchants selling goods in the market, travelers arriving along the roads, and bathhouses full of visitors. To everyone, it seemed like just another ordinary day in the Roman Empire. That morning, some residents noticed something unusual at the top of Mount Vesuvius. A dark column slowly began rising into the sky. At first, it looked like nothing more than an odd cloud. The problem was that the cloud was growing a little too quickly to be harmless. Soon after, volcanic stones started falling over the city. Roofs were struck, streets filled with ash, and daylight began to fade. That calm morning was suddenly turning into something far less comfortable. Some residents decided to flee immediately, which in hindsight was a very reasonable idea. Others tried to protect their homes or seek shelter inside buildings. Unfortunately, no one owned a helpful instruction manual on how to deal with a massive volcanic eruption. Everything depended on improvisation. As ash and stones kept falling, the city sank into darkness. Lightning flashed through the towering cloud of smoke, and the air became harder and harder to breathe. During the night, Vesuvius released pyroclastic flows, extremely hot clouds of gas and ash that rushed quickly across the region. When they reached Pompeii, everything happened in minutes. Houses, streets, markets, and temples vanished beneath thick layers of volcanic ash. The city that had once been full of noise and movement suddenly fell silent. Without intending to, Vesuvius had just turned Pompeii into one of history's most dramatic time capsules. For centuries, the city remained forgotten beneath the earth. Above it, the world continued changing. Empires rose, collapsed, and new cities appeared. Meanwhile, Pompeii waited patiently to be rediscovered. Hidden under volcanic ash for nearly 1,600 years, the Roman city remained strangely preserved. While history kept moving elsewhere, Pompeii stayed frozen in silence below the ground, a rather unplanned time capsule created by a particularly expressive volcano. In the 18th century, workers digging in the area began uncovering strange structures beneath the soil. At first, no one truly understood the scale of what was buried there. After all, discovering an entire city underground is not exactly an everyday event. As excavations continued, entire streets slowly reappeared. Houses, temples, markets, and theaters emerged from the earth. It felt almost as if someone had pressed pause on Roman life and returned nearly 2,000 years later. Archaeologists were amazed by how well the city had been preserved. Mosaics still decorated the floors, paintings remained on the walls, and everyday objects sat exactly where they had been left on that day in AD 79. Even bakeries, taverns, and shops were discovered almost intact. Ovens, tools, and counters were still in place. It was a striking reminder that, before the eruption, Pompeii had not been a silent ruin, but a busy, vibrant city full of daily life. One of the most remarkable discoveries came when archaeologists realized that hollow spaces in the ground marked where bodies had once been buried under the ash. By filling these cavities with plaster, they created haunting casts of the victims' final positions. The result revealed something deeply human: people trying to protect their families, escape, or simply survive. Pompeii became more than an ancient tragedy. It became a silent portrait of a real moment in history. Excavations continued for decades, and new discoveries are still appearing today. Every house, mural, or object uncovered helps historians understand what daily life was really like inside a Roman city. Pompeii eventually became one of the most important archaeological sites in the world, not only because of the disaster that happened there, but because the city preserved rare details about the culture, architecture, and habits of ancient Rome. Ironically, the same event that destroyed the city is also what preserved it. The ash that buried Pompeii ended up protecting its streets, homes, and stories for nearly 2,000 years. Walking through Pompeii today feels almost like visiting a frozen day from ancient Rome. Houses, shops, temples, and even graffiti on the walls are still there, quietly reminding us that Roman daily life might have been far more familiar than many people expect. Excavations also revealed surprising details about Roman habits: tavern menus, advertisements painted on walls, and even personal messages left by residents. In other words, the city's ancient social network was literally written on its walls. Researchers were also able to understand how Roman houses, water systems, streets, and local businesses worked. Pompeii eventually became something like a giant open-air classroom about Roman urban life. Today, millions of people visit Pompeii every year to see this city preserved by Mount Vesuvius. It is a rather unusual tourist destination. No one originally planned to turn the city into a museum, but the volcano decided to do exactly that. Pompeii still reminds us of something important. Civilizations can build impressive cities, but sometimes geology calmly steps in to remind everyone who really has the final word.
Sometimes history doesn't really disappear. It simply waits in silence until someone begins to dig. If you'd like to keep traveling through time with me, stay here. There are still many hidden stories waiting to be told.